So, Simi,
Thank you, and welcome to our yoga fundraiser. Thank you for doing this. I specifically wanted you to come on because I think mental health needs to be focused upon right now, and with everything that's going on, I think mental health is not something that we're talking about as much as we should. So let me quickly introduce you to everyone who's joined in. So, Simi Mathew is a practicing psychotherapist based out of Bangalore. She practices independently and she sees clients for issues ranging from anxiety, stress related issues, life crisis, self esteem, anger, mental health issues, personal growth, and life direction issues by designing interventions tailored to the needs of the individual. So basically, you work with individuals to design individualized interventions for the kind of issues that they're dealing with. And as I've mentioned before, like many, you have a vast repertoire of things that you help with. You've mentioned that one of your major goals as a therapist is to provide the best possible conditions for the emergence of the true self, in which the client's humanity and individuality are revealed simultaneously. I found this very interesting because it seems to me that you look at a client as a human being holistically, and not just as just another case that you need to deal with. So I'd like you to speak about that a little bit more. I also like the fact that you've mentioned that for both you and your client, these beautiful, profound experiences of wholeness are a wellspring from which deep and lasting changes flow. So I really like that you're talking about being about individual therapy, and that your approach to therapy is also very individualized, and that this can be lasting change instead of just something that works just for that short bit of time. Can you really elaborate a little bit more about how you do this, how you go about working with your students or clients? Sorry.
absolutely. So, in my practice, or as I approach my practice, one of the things that I see myself is a facilitator with the knowledge that I have through my practice and from my educational background. But I also see myself as being in the same learning process as them, because through their growth and through their, as they heal, I'm also going through that same process with them as a facilitator, and there is so much that you learn from them. And hence, I call that a very collaborative effort. And through my work, I also insist on bringing about the humanity and the individuality. Now, both of it sounds quite similar. And what would be the difference? Humanity in this case for me is the conditioning that we come into it, right? And conditioning comes from the society. It comes from our parental, upbringing. It comes from what we feel we should be. It comes from what we see within our peers. So there is that which I call the ideal self, what we believe we should be based on all these snippets that we pick up as we are growing and as we are evolving. But at the same time, deep within us, there is also the sense of self of who I really want to be, right? There is this sense of, okay, this is how you should dress for work, but how would I really want to dress for work? That's the simplest way of, probably understanding this. So it's about finding that balance between what I expect myself to be versus who I really want to be. And that is where, in spite of the array of whatever problems they want to come to me to work with, it's about finding your true self through that process. Because finding your true self for me is like finding your superpower. You can, basically, with little or no support, then face the world and challenges, because that then becomes your anchor to go through some of, crises that the life would throw at you.
So healing from self-discovery. So self-discovery as a form of healing. Wow.
Yes, we are all our own superheroes. You don't need a Superman or a Batman. We are all a Superwoman. So we are all our superheroes. And I would like to say that I would like to help you find your own superhero through this process.
Wonderful. That's wonderful. And yes, I think our audience also feels the same way. Love this way of thinking. This is a great topic. Okay, great. Yeah, I think this is a very relevant topic also right now. With everything that's happening right now, I think a lot of the focus is on physical healing, and the mental aspect is just sort of taking a backseat, which perhaps has been more important. I mean, it's always very visible what's happening to people physically, but mentally, I think a lot of people are in shambles, and there's not enough dialogue happening around that. So, what is your take on that? How are we because the pandemic is something that's new. I mean, it's the first time in 100 years that and I'm hoping that it's never going to happen again within our lifetimes at least. So, how are we processing this? How are we looking at this, because it's a new thing? Are we confused? Are we what is happening? How does the mind process this? Because I think the mind and body are really are closely related, and I think that if the mind is confused, if the mind is uncomfortable or in pain, or then that translates to physical health also, to the diminishing of physical health. So what is your take on that?
So, yes, so we are the Holy Trinity, as I would like to call it, mind, body, and soul. So, all three of them are interconnected. If the mind is not feeling well, it will start manifesting in the body. If the body is not feeling well, then it will manifest in how you feel differently. And if your mind and body or either one is not doing well, it will affect your identity and how you put yourself across in front of the world, which I feel is your soul. So interestingly, mental health crisis is actually being called as the hidden fourth wave of the pandemic. That as the pandemic slowly starts going away, which it would in good time, it would be the mental health crisis that stays away, because we are all bringing out all our resources, tools to just deal with what is being thrown at us. Because as human beings, we are designed and conditioned for predictability. However, we're living in very uncertain terms right now. We are feeling very destabilized. And these are things that nobody trained us to do. These are things that doesn't intrinsically, we are not conditioned even at a biological level. So, for that matter, COVID has had a major impact on our lives. Many of us are facing challenges that can be stressful, it is overwhelming, and cause really strong emotion within us. And that then is translating to our physical health. It's a little bit of a chicken and egg situation. I would say that it's the physical health that would also be impacting our mental health and vice versa. But things like sleeplessness, difficulty sleeping, change in our appetite, difficulty concentrating, not feeling like ourselves, not taking care of ourselves in from a hygienic point of view even. So these are some of the things that you see as we are coping with this pandemic, at a physical level, and how it is translating to us at a mental level. It's interesting, because of how severe the second wave has been in our country, there is also a collective trauma, a collective grief, a collective sense of loss, a collective fear that we are feeling right now. One thing, unfortunately, that stands common and that threads all 1.7 billion of us right now is that we all know somebody who's been impacted by COVID. We all know probably somebody who's lost their lives to COVID. And this is not something that I want, that I want to be common. So the grief and what we are dealing is very collective. And some of the symptoms to look out for is, feeling vulnerable, loss of control, concerns about health of self and others, change in working patterns or routine, feeling of personal danger, being isolated, lacking necessary supplies to conduct your work, and feeling helpless and stuck. So these are some of the things that you can sort of see common symptoms of the mental health crisis that we are feeling right now.
Oh, okay. And are these the clients who are coming to you at this point in time these days? Are they? Is this what you've learned from them, or are there actually studies being done about? Because there's studies being done about the physical aspect of COVID, but I'm wondering if there are such things, because done on mental health, because this is because it is unprecedented, because just like we are befuddled about the physical aspect, we may also be befuddled about the mental aspect and not know how to treat it, or not even be able to recognize the symptoms. So is this something that you're seeing on the ground right now with your clients, with the people who are coming to you?
Well, Pragya, it's not just on the ground. Yes, the simple answer to that, the straightforward answer to that is yes. But these are the things that I am also feeling. Probably you have also felt at this level. So right now, it's not just about what we're seeing on the ground, but it's also about what we ourselves are feeling, and that common thread that you find between them and us and everybody for that matter. So interestingly, mental health in India was, is there's still a lot of stigma attached to people seeking help regarding mental health, because mental health for some for whatever reason was seen as a very personal property. Like, health, physical health could be attributed to, bad genes, or could be attributed to just bad luck, not praying enough, even if you want to call that. But mental health, however, is seen as a very personal thing that, you are responsible for. Like, if your mental health is not good, then you are doing something wrong, or you are doing something bad, or you are just a bad person to go through this, or you just, unholy person to go through this. For that matter, there is still lack of, the right attention mental health, research should be getting. In spite of that, WHO, CDC, even ICMR has very important and very effective guidelines on how to also cope at a mental health level during this pandemic. So there is enough research that is out there, but the problem is not about enough research. The problem is primarily that we don't identify this as a necessary problem, and hence not seeking out these information that is already out there.
Okay, so what would you suggest for every, like you said, all of us are facing, many of these issues. So what are your some things that you would suggest to people who are dealing with these issues right now? What are some best practices for getting through this time in one piece?
Okay, so it is, some of the best. So I would like to say, and that's what this talk was also, called, kindness and self-care. So for me, kindness and self-care is like the Swiss Army knife about, to deal with this. With kindness and self-care, there's a great level of relief that you can find through these crises. But as we talk about it, it's also important to understand what we are feeling. Some of us have been feeling, or many of us have been feeling something called the survivor's guilt. Survivor's guilt is especially felt when you have questions like, why was I saved? Like, why have I not contracted the virus? Or why didn't I fall sick severely? Or could I have something done differently? Like, a lot of us are asking, like, I'm not doing enough, or should I be not doing enough? And sort of feeling guilty about that. And to answer your question and keeping this in mind, it is important to know that, hey, take care of yourself first, right? If you have ever flown, if you have ever been in an airplane, you would hear the air hostess say, put your oxygen mask before you put somebody else's oxygen mask. So it is important to know that self-care is critical right now. Couple of things that you could do during this time is to make sure that, you have building resilience is a very important word right now. So some of the things that you could do is to regain control, have a sense of control on your everyday living or everyday functioning, and that could be just small pockets of control, because human beings, we love control. We know we need predictability. We need to know that tomorrow is going to happen. Hope is the key word over here. So it is important that you have some sense of control. Now, how do you regain that sense of control? Have a wake up time that you stick to. One of the things that you do, have a very, take intermittent breaks when, if you're working, have a control over that, when you eat your meal, when you eat your sleep. So maybe a sense of control on your schedule, that does the job. Practicing gratitude and mindfulness does wonders, because what it does for us is that we are able to move from glass half empty to glass half full. Now, how do you practice gratitude on every day? At any point of the day, maybe ideally during bedtime, is to remember and recollect something that happened to you that day for which you're grateful for. So not things like, okay, I'm grateful for the food that I ate, but probably grateful for how you felt when you were eating that food. That is gratitude. Empower your body, very critical right now. Take appropriate measure, but see if you can get some fresh air. If you can stand on your balcony and just get 5 minutes of fresh air, 10 minutes of vitamin D, which is sunlight, does the job. Practicing your breath work. If you can do some sort of exercise for 10 minutes, does the job, because we are already inundated with a lot of stress. So doing, like, a lot of big things, not everybody is cut off for it, and that's perfectly fine. But doing the bare minimum helps us stay grounded and helps us feel that, and it also keeps us in good health. Feel your feelings. interestingly, we come from the sort of conditioning that, we shouldn't feel our feelings and we should keep our feelings very curtailed, especially the so-called negative feelings like anger or this thing. So in this case, it is important that, what you see in front of you is what you have. You don't have, cloud space for your emotions somewhere else. So imagine how much do you want to keep bottled inside. So feel your feelings, but also make sure that you let it go and it doesn't consume you. That way you have enough space within you not to feel overwhelmed. Shift from reacting to responding. So when you hear some news, when you're hearing something, make sure that you're not immediately reacting. So what would be a good example? So I'm walking down the street, somebody sees me and he calls me fat or something of that sort, and my immediate reaction is beep 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 beep, and but that's reacting. Now the same thing happens again. He calls me fat and I look at him and I'm like, okay, thank you. Or I look at him and I smile at him, or I look at him and I ask him, okay, why did you say that? Do you really think I'm fat? That's react, that is responding. So what it does for us, that it gives us a sense of control over our emotions, and we are not going to be jumpy at external triggers. Information, a lot of us are doom scrolling right now, which is just going through, this negative information, like scrolling up, scrolling down, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, all that. See if the information is replenishing you or if it's actually depleting. If it is depleting you, it should be, stop it right away, because it's doing you no good. Stay connected. It's probably difficult for us to stay in touch with everybody. We probably don't have the energy to do so, but stay connected to at least one or two human beings, because that gives us a sense of belonging, which is very important for us. And since many of us are in social isolation right now, we have losing that sense of belonging, which is also adding to the dread, which is also impacting our mental health right now. So stay connected. So these are some of the quick things that you can incorporate in your everyday life to ensure that you're coping with these situations as well as we can under these circumstances.
My point was quite interesting about staying connected with one or two people, at least one or two people, because it gives
Right.
of belonging and connection. Because on social media, I've frequently come across this post which says, well, remember the people who reached out to you, remember them, because they're your real friends. And when you were the lowest, who were the people who were reaching out to you. And I think what you're saying makes so much more sense, because your friends may be dealing with a lot, right? Everyone is dealing with a lot right now, and self-care comes first. They have to think about them, and we don't know what's happening in their life. So to expect to sit in your house and expect that people will reach out to you, and sort of like with this attitude that I'm keeping a score, is not I disagree with that, attitude. And I think what you're saying, the same thing, that it's impossible right now to stay in touch with everybody. It's actually, it may be harmful, mentally draining and harmful for you to just try to reach out to a lot of people.
Exactly. Toxic positivity is only going to leave you drained. It's only going to make you feel more isolated. Toxic positivity is not what we want right now. We're dealing with a pandemic. We are going to feel overwhelmed. We are going to feel scared. That is the true emotion to it. Like, for example, toxic positivity basically expects you to be always smiling no matter what, under any circumstance. It's just not, it neither is it practical, neither is it healthy. If something bad happens to you, you deserve to be angry or upset or however you want to be about it. Similarly, we're dealing with a pandemic right now, and it is only appropriate that you stay true to your emotions. Take care of yourself first. If you can't deal with 10 different people, and even though 10 different people were there for you, it's okay. Self acceptance and practicing self acceptance without judgment, with kindness, is also very critical to this practice.
uh Okay, and so now that now that we're talking about taking care of ourselves first, what about those of us who are dealing with parents who are sick, or friends who are ill, people who are close to us and in our domain, like within the house, and the people who are contracting COVID, it's proving to be mentally very very it's it's a huge strain on them, and it's trauma. Actually, it's traumatic. How do we stay upbeat for them? How do we handle this? Perhaps not stay upbeat, but how? Because when you're in such close quarters with someone who's suffering, and you are suffering also, you do feel a sense of responsibility to maybe be the strong one. What is the best way to deal with that?
The best is very subjective, right? Because my friend could, thinking of an example, if my friend's parents were positive and she was able to keep them happy and take care of them round the clock, and doesn't mean that I can do the same thing too. On it doesn't even make sense that I hold myself to the same yardstick and say that, okay, I need to be doing this. If I'm not doing that, I'm not a good, daughter or a family member. So define what you can do. That is very important, but stick to the basics. The stick to the basics is that understand what their requirements are. If you can make a plan with that, that'll be great, right? Bringing it down to a pen and paper makes a lot of difference, because what it does for us is that it gives us a clear structure and a sense of, control over what is expected out of you and how much you need to do, instead of, trying to sort of wing it, especially if you're feeling already overwhelmed and stressed out. Trying to wing it, even though it is the daily mundane things that you otherwise do, I would still say get down to a pen and paper, because you're not dealing with the same everyday stress. You're dealing with additional stress right now. Apart from that, there is also the stress of, the fearing for a, loved one's life. That these are extraordinary situations that we as human beings are not capable of handling. But at the same time, what we have is extraordinary resilience. That we are one of those species, you put us through fire, we know how to get up and face fire again and still go on about it. So these are but at the same time, stay with the feeling, admit to yourself that you're scared. Trying to bottle it up or trying to suppress it, you see a lot of people saying, I don't want to think about it, I don't want to deal with it right now because I'll go weak. If that is what works for you, go ahead and do that. But at some point of time, take a minute, cry it out if you need to, scream it out if you need to, let that fear out, because otherwise it's going to sit within you and consume you, and really, deplete your energy. There are some people for whom, they're okay to deal with it. Then I would say, again, get down to your pen and paper, because just keeping it in your mind, it's probably going to be very overwhelming for you. Write it down, write your feelings down, write your fears down, write your thoughts down, and then keep it at that. If you're somebody who believes in prayer, keep on, continue with your prayer. But remember that prayer is an affirmation of your faith. Prayer is not the art of begging, which a lot of us do unconsciously. So affirm your faith if you believe in a higher power, because faith really works miracles during this time. It really works miracles, not to bring miracles into our life, but to keep us hanging in there. And keeping us hanging in there and not losing our mind through such a scary pandemic is a miracle by itself. It's a gift by itself.
Okay. That's a wonderful way of looking at it. There's actually a question on information.
Mm-hmm.
I struggle with this. It seems like a very privileged position to take when so many people, not as fortunate as some of us, are going through so much worse. And to choose to be ignorant seems almost selfish. How do we battle with this feeling? Okay, so this is about our social media consumption, the consumption of information. So,
Right, right. So clearly, in this case, you know, everybody who is here right now and have the privilege to listen to a we're all privileged right now. But let's not turn our privilege, let's treat our privilege with gratitude and not with guilt. Because if you have a privilege, let's turn to, because what it does for us when we are sort of focusing on gratitude is that it helps us, come up with better ideas than with guilt, because your guilt has zero value to you right now. It has zero value to another human, because basically what we'll be doing is sitting at home saying, oh my god, I'm not doing anything, should I be doing something? It is only going to deplete more energy from you. Remember, in this pandemic right now, if you take care of yourself, you are already contributing to helping somebody else, because we are dealing with a highly contagious virus over there. So if you stay at home, if you take care of yourself, you're doing a great job of already contributing. And if that's pretty much how much you can do, good job, pat yourself on the back. There's a 6-inch difference between pat on the back and a kick on the butt. And this definitely deserves the pat on the back. So go ahead and do that. So it is very key to understand what our limits are. Thankfully, there are enough people. There are some of us who are designed to do big things, who can handle the stress, can take it in, can look at resources, can do resource management. If you are one of those people, do your bit, right? Even contributing 10 rupees makes a difference. All of that makes a difference. And if you can't do anything, you still can do something valuable, which is every day smile at somebody. Don't forget that we are living in social isolation. If you can call somebody up and check on how they are doing, if you can call, knock on your neighbor's door, please wear your mask, double mask if you need to, and ask them if they need anything, that is also doing something. So help and contribution doesn't necessarily mean going out there saving lives or arranging resources. It also means so many other small things that can make a lot of difference right now.
Hmm. That's a good way of looking at it. Yeah, just to be able to take care of yourself, taking care of yourself, staying in, that's contribution enough, because the kind of the what we're dealing with is not it's all over. So we yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, there's another question which is quite interesting. So I'll just read out the question to you. How do we deal with people who don't stop their celebrations in this very difficult time for the country? Some people want to have unnecessary events. It feels odd to have a gathering for Mother's Day when many places are even banning weddings. So this question actually, like a lot of us are going through this, where we're saying, oh, why did people go to the Kumbh Mela? Oh, obviously it was going to spread if people act like this, and so that all that angst that comes with maybe that this is a reaction to what other people are doing. So how do we deal with this? I know it probably comes from a place of insecurity, because we're all insecure about ourselves. We are all worried about what's happening. But how do we? And this is something that a lot of people are actually going through. We keep talking about it. Oh, look, obviously this was going to happen in India. Everybody's going around with not wearing masks, and so consumed by what other people are doing, and what we perceive as wrong and what is wrong. I mean, if people are not wearing masks and gathering, so how do we deal with that? The stress that comes with that.
So there's a difference between what is socially responsible for something like, if I may, talk about some of the religious function, celebrations or congregation that happen right before this. There's a social responsibility over there about how much you're spreading and things like that. That's a whole different thing. Versus celebration, right? Versus celebration like Mother's Day, and each to their own. Live and let live is a very important foundation right now. Some people, we all deal with trauma differently, we all deal with crisis differently. For some people, being in denial and focusing on these external celebration is what is going to give them peace. And for some of us, being very much in touch with our feeling, and doing something about it, and maintaining that sense of emotion that we have in our everyday living is probably what is important to survive. So I would say I love to to practice live and let live, as long as it doesn't cross over the line and it sorts of physically harm somebody, because that is the most important thing right now. I think we should all learn to live and let live, because we really don't have the luxury to really focus on somebody else's happiness right now and think how dare they are happy for us. There was this whole debate about certain influencers going ahead and still posting content which was sort of talking about the travel and things like that. I personally felt that that was very unnecessary, because they are entitled to live their life on their own terms the way they want, and that is what we are all entitled to. That's what personal liberty means. But if their events are endangering somebody physically, or intimidating, or inspiring people to it, I think that is when we have a problem, and then we call on to that and we raise awareness about that, and that's how we can solve that problem. Otherwise, I would say we should all learn to live and let live.
That's wonderful. Yeah. So as long as they're following the rules, as long as they're social distancing, we should learn to live and let live. Okay. Another question, which is also very relevant. What about if someone doesn't want to talk? I want to check on my best friend, but sometimes my friend is too tired to talk, but okay to chat. So there's another aspect to this, where a lot of people do bottle up their emotions. We know friends who do bottle up their emotions, or they pretend that nothing is wrong. And so how do we reach out to these people? Because in this at this point in time, we're also physically isolated. They're not meeting people all the time. There is no, even if if these people had a huge circle of friends. Otherwise, right now, there's nobody around them, and they have the habit of isolating themselves and not talking. So how do we deal with friends like that or people like that?
Um, See, when somebody is bottling up their emotions and not necessarily talking, it also means that. So there's a subtle difference. There's a thin line that divides between self-preservation and somebody sort of slipping down, sort of going down the drain and sort of going down the rabbit hole and really needs an intervention. Sometimes we are not able to recognize when somebody is practicing self-preservation and when somebody actually needs an intervention. Self-preservation, to be understood in this case, would be that sometimes we don't have the energy, the mental bandwidth, or the strength or the time to process some of our big emotions. So what we do is we temporarily sort of keep within us, and when we have the right time, we sort of process them, and then it all comes out. Typically in situations where we have, where we have work responsibilities, mothers who are raising young children, family members who have other responsibilities at that time, probably they can't afford to probably feel their feelings at that appropriate time. We need to respect them, because what is also important in these cases when people are actually practicing self-preservation is to respect their boundaries, because it is not, they don't feel safe enough to express them right now. And that is important, because if we go there and we're like, what's happening, tell me, if you go ahead and do that, what is going to happen is that you're going to prematurely expose them to their emotions, and that could be another crisis by itself. Versus somebody who you feel is going down, who needs an intervention. Give them their space, but set a timeline for them. For example, the same friend who we were talking about. You know something is up. You know this person needs to talk. You know you need to check up on this person. Go ahead, chat, but then you also say, hey, you know what? Just for my sake, I just want to make sure that you're okay. So tomorrow at this time, can we just call, have a quick 5-minute chat, and just say how you're doing, and can we just quickly do that? So sort of give them the time. So what happens is that we're not really jumping on them. We are not probably sort of scaring them. So it also gives them enough time to prepare and process, and if they need, if and so that they are also aware and ready to talk to us. But again, remember, there are those 0.1% chances that no matter what we do, unfortunately, some of our friends or some of our family or some of the people we know are not ready to take help, don't want to take help, and probably even will not take help. That's at 0.111%. And we need to understand and accept that.
Okay. So related to this, there's another comment which is also it's so relevant. So to clarify, bottling up isn't the same as not wanting to talk. I have some degree of social anxiety myself, so I do prefer that we chat sometimes rather than do a voice video call. It is important to also recognize these nuances. I've even said to good friends, I don't feel up to talking, but I can chat. Self-preservation, as Simi said. So yes, so I guess this is also very important because some people are not comfortable talking or video calling, and right now everyone is also very busy, to do that. But yes, a lot of people are more comfortable on chat. So a lot of us have to sort of understand that also, that the way we've been communicating thus far, it has changed, and we need to really accept that, be accepting of that.
Yeah, it's a tricky thing to really know, right? You're trying to respect somebody's space and emotions, at the same time you also are worried for their well-being. It's not easy, but let's do our best, and that's enough. Doing best is enough, and doing best doesn't mean that you crack it,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's just not possible. So be kind.
Fine. Okay, so there's another comment. Would it be correct that we don't talk about the pandemic, be it at home or at work, etc., because the fear starts manifesting and creates more panic? However, would it be insensitive to not talk and discuss about it? This is more of a dilemma. So a lot of people are dealing with that also. Like, should we talk about it? Because once we start talking about it, then we get fearful, and we feel that we're spreading the fear and the panic. However, if we don't talk about it, we feel that we're being insensitive, that we're not being clued into what's happening around us. And the social responsibility, we're not acting as socially responsible citizens. What is your take on that?
Our primary responsibility is to us, and then after that to people around us, which may include family, society, whoever you say. And keeping that in mind, that our primary responsibility is to us, And if we take care of ourselves, then we can take care of ourselves. For example, I have a glass of water. I drink the glass of water. It is empty. Pragya, you come and ask me, Simi, can you give me a glass of water? I can't give you this glass because it's empty, right? So I can only give you what I have. I can't sort of, give you what I don't have. Hence, if you feel that you cannot talk about it, and that is important for your self preservation, that is important for your mental health, the only person who needs to be okay with that is you. Because it does comes with the risk of being insensitive. But you better be okay with people misunderstanding you to be insensitive for the sake of you maintaining your mental health. Because if your health is impacted, I'm sure it impacts others more intensely and more deeply than you not talking about it and coming across as insensitive.
Right, right. Okay. Someone has also suggested, I feel like it's nice to send your loved ones a message to let them know that you're thinking of them whenever you feel up to it. In that way, they reply and they feel up to it. So that's also another approach that a lot of us are taking, that we just send a message so that we're not infringing. We don't feel like we're infringing on their time, on their space, because a lot of people are working from home as well. Like I have a lot of friends who are working from home and who have children, and their lives with the maids not coming and help around that, their lives are in like some kind of disarray at this point in time. So this also works. It's nice to just sort of leave.
Yeah, absolutely. Like how we call it. I'm just putting it out there. If you need to, just come back to me. We'll have a talk. That's also great. That's non-intrusive, which is very important right now.
Non-intrusive. Great. Wonderful. So let's just see if anyone else has any questions. Simi, is there anything you would like to add to this? Okay.
I think, in spite of all this, okay, yeah, if there's any question,
Yes, there
definitely.
is one question. Okay, how do you explain the pandemic to young children?
Very interesting. So it is important for us to sort of make sure if you have young children at home, children are very, easily pick on the anxieties of their parents. They're very wired and they're very sensitive to parents, right? Especially if the parents' anxiety is around how do I stay safe? How do I, if you focus a lot on your personal survival, it is very easy for children as young as 5, 6, 7 to start worrying about death and being alive and staying protected. And these are tools that children don't have to sort of process. So something that I don't have children, so it's very difficult for me to answer. But as a professional, what I have noticed and I have seen my niece is sort of coping with this is that they have some basic information about what the virus is, what the virus does, and how we are all choosing to stay at home to stay protected. So that gives them a sense of a sense of participation, that gives them a sense of choice, and that also gives them a sense that yes, I'm being safe and I'm being protected. So these are small things that children, important tools that children can understand and cope and understand. So helping them to understand that and make them feel that we're all choosing to stay home, we're all dealing with this, and we're taking all these measures to deal with this is important. Yes, life and death is a part of life, and children, as young children are not equipped to understand those concepts. So depending on your own faith or depending your own mental framework, explaining that to them, but not as probably attributed to pandemic itself, because you don't want the children to sort of feel that death is a big part of the pandemic. Then they will be start scared of it and getting scared for themselves. As it is, their social skills are impacted, because this is a very important time for children to sort of pick up social skills and identity, with social interaction, which is impacted. So controlling the information in such a way that it makes them feel as if they have a choice and they are also participating in this helps a lot.
Sort of making them feel empowered about what is happening,
Yes,
not making them feel helpless. I also have
exactly.
I also have friends who have prioritized their children's time with other children. So making sure that their children communicate with other children, you know, uh,
Hmm.
like their iPads or through regular meetings, and making sure that they understand that this is how school is right now. Talk to the teacher. It's the same, So I have a lot of friends who are prioritizing that. That children need to understand that just because you're inside doesn't mean that you are isolated or you've disappeared or something like that. So that
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. These are children born with an iPad, right? So they know how to stay connected through internet. It's us, the adults who are still get learning the ropes around it. So for them, it is, children are very resilient and adaptable. They are more resilient and more adaptable than us. It's just that they need the right tools to do that. So yes, continuing to sort of, we don't have play dates in person, but you can have a play date virtually or have an online board game. Kahoot was really popular at one point of time. Things like that will really help them. Absolutely.
All right, and let's come back to what you were saying. You wanted to add something. Is there anything?
Yeah, I think in spite of all the the gloom and everything of what we are speaking with, I think it is very important for also to understand the power of human resilience. And what I would like to end with is that while the pandemic has undeniably caused extraordinary stress and sadness, but if you look at the research on human resilience, it suggests that people will recover from the trauma of pandemic faster than than many of us believe. Many years back, it was we had the tsunami and how it collectively affected Southeast Asia, and how many of us remember that, how many of us talk about that? Most of us, including the survivors, have healed from it with the appropriate intervention. So while certain groups may need more mental health care for longer time, but it's also very true that humans ability to overcome adversity is over and underestimated, and that an overwhelming majority of people who will suffer trauma or who will suffer stress during this time will actually flourish and not just languish, a term that was popularized by an article in New York Times, in good time. But right now, self-care and kindness, Swiss Army knife of mental health, will just do the job.
I love the fact that we're ending on a positive note and looking forward to flourishing. I mean, I love the fact that we're ending with flourish rather than languish. It's wonderful. So if anyone has any more questions, please feel free. Any question that you have about anything that you may be going through, your friends may be going through, any question if you have for Simi. And Simi, if someone wants to contact you, afterwards, where can they reach you? Maybe you can talk about your website. You have a website, I suppose, and if you want to give your email address.
Yes, yes, I have a website. You can go to my website, www.simimathew.com. That is SIMIMATHEW.com. Or you can send me an email, simi@simimathew.com. I'll be more than happy to answer your questions or anything that you may have around this.
Yeah, so I've put that in the comments for everybody.
Perfect.
Chat. So okay, so yeah, so please reach out now that we're confined at home. Sometimes with parents or others, the amount of internal squabbles have increased. Any ways to deal with the now that we're confined at home?
Right. If you know how to deal with it, teach me as well. Because many of us, we have never, including your spouses, including your parents, we have never spent so much time with each other. So know that, there is going to be, adjustment issues and things like that. Live and let live. We don't have to fight every single battle. Choose your battles wisely. You don't have to prove the other person right on every single thing. Distance, create safe space for yourself. All of these small things can help a little bit, but then Indian family drama, enjoy it while you can.
Yeah, because hopefully we won't have to deal with it for much longer. Okay, so what
Yes.
shared an article on being dormant and how. Okay, there's an article taking some me time helps me usually.
Hmm.
Okay. Yeah, so wonderful. Okay, so basically your message is practice self-kindness. Uh, take it easy, be easy on yourself, be easy on others. It's a time to literally hibernate and not really, worry about what's happening and not to be too busy mentally and physically as well.
Yeah, do your best, and do your best is subjective. Take care of yourself first before you try to take care of others. Don't have to go after big guns if you are not equipped to, deal with, providing collective support. Even, smiling at another human being makes a difference, and that human being doesn't need to be outside your house. Could be someone within your house as well.
Wonderful, wonderful. All right, so I think this has been a great conversation. I don't see anything, any other
Oh
questions.
yes. Also, I think also attend a lot of yoga classes.
Yes,
It really
yoga.
helps.
Yeah. Okay, so just attending lots of yoga classes, or what I've been doing is setting up individual sessions with other yoga teachers or friends. Then you'll all just building some peace, and the family is happy. Of course, I live at home, so I can't say. So of course, I don't live at home, so I can't say probably. All right. Okay. So Simi, thank you so much for this interaction.
Most welcome.
I will be putting this up on YouTube so that other people can also have access to this. And because I feel that there's not enough talk happening, not enough dialogue happening around mental health during this time. So I feel this is very valuable. Great.
Great.
If no further questions, I think we're good to close the session. Thank you so much, Simi.
Thank you everyone who logged in. Thank you so much. God bless. Bye.
Bye.